begin. It was a Friday evening, and the air carried the faint scent of autumn leaves. Ethan sat in his favorite armchair, a cold beer in hand, staring blankly at the muted television. His mind wandered back to the naive dreams of his youth, where he had imagined meeting the one person who would complete him, a lifelong companion with whom he could build an unbreakable bond. It was a romantic fantasy, almost childlike in its innocence. But life, as it often does, shattered those dreams into fragments of harsh reality. That evening, as he sipped his drink, Ethan felt the weight of disillusionment pressing down on him, threatening to suffocate the remnants of hope he still clung to. The silence was abruptly broken by the sound of high heels clicking against the hardwood floor. His wife, Claire, entered the room, her golden blonde hair cascading over her shoulders, her striking blue eyes piercing through the dim light. She paused for a moment, her presence commanding attention, before uttering the words that would change everything. "We need to talk." The calmness in her voice was deceptive, masking the storm that was about to unfold. Ethan's heart sank as he braced himself for what was to come, his grip tightening around the beer bottle until his knuckles turned white. This was not the peaceful start to the weekend he had envisioned. Ethan's world began to unravel as Claire's words echoed in his ears. Her tone was steady, but each syllable felt like a dagger piercing his soul. "I want to try something different before we start a family," she said, her voice unwavering. At first, Ethan struggled to comprehend the meaning behind her statement. Then, realization hit him like a freight train. Claire wanted to date other men while remaining married to him, expecting his consent. The room seemed to spin as her devastating request sank in, flipping his world upside down. His hands instinctively gripped the edge of the table, knuckles white with tension, as if holding on for dear life. Claire's voice became a blurred backdrop, drowned out by the relentless thrum of rage coursing through his body. He had walked into the house expecting nothing more than a quiet night, a beer in hand, and a peaceful start to the weekend with his wife. Instead, he found himself thrust into a nightmare, grappling with emotions he never thought he'd face. The moment felt surreal, as if he had been transported into the garbled adult voices of a Charlie Brown cartoon. His hearing switched off moments earlier, replaced by the deafening roar of betrayal. Ethan and Claire's story began in the bustling corridors of their university, where fate intertwined their paths amidst the chaos of academic pursuits. Ethan, a diligent computer science major working towards his master's degree, was drawn to Claire's vibrant energy and sharp intellect. She, 2 years his junior, was pursuing a bachelor's in accounting, her golden locks and captivating blue eyes turning heads wherever she went. Their connection was instant, a magnetic pull that neither could resist. They quickly became inseparable, their shared laughter echoing through campus halls as they navigated the challenges of college life together. Their relationship blossomed into love, and after graduation, they took the leap into marriage, eager to build a life rooted in trust and partnership. In the early years, their bond seemed unshakable. They made thoughtful decisions together, like choosing to share Ethan's last name after heartfelt discussions. As they approached their 5th anniversary, they stood on the cusp of starting a family, ready to deepen their commitment. Yet beneath the surface, cracks had begun to form. Hormonal birth control complications had forced them to rely on condoms, but their 5th anniversary was meant to mark a symbolic step forward, abandoning precautions as they embraced the idea of parenthood. Claire's sudden announcement shattered this fragile foundation. Her desire to explore unresolved doubts before committing fully to family life blindsided Ethan. What once felt like a solid partnership now teetered on the edge of collapse, leaving him questioning everything they had built together. The woman he loved, the life they had planned, it all felt like a mirage slipping through his fingers. Claire's justification for her request was as baffling as it was infuriating. She framed her desire to date other men as a necessary step toward personal growth, claiming it would help clear her mind before embracing motherhood. To Ethan, her reasoning sounded hollow, a thinly veiled excuse for infidelity. When pressed further, Claire revealed that the idea had been planted by Margaret, her coworker and confidant, who had been divorced 4 times. Margaret had convinced Claire that exploring her doubts in this way was not only healthy, but essential for her emotional clarity. Margaret's influence loomed large in Claire's decision. During their conversations, Margaret had painted Ethan as someone who could be manipulated, insisting that his initial anger would eventually give way to compliance if Claire played her cards right. Together, they laughed about how charm and improved intimacy could sway him, treating the situation as a game rather than a betrayal of vows. For Ethan, listening to recordings of their scheming conversations was a gut-wrenching experience. Their casual dismissal of his feelings and their plans to exploit his trust left him feeling violated and powerless. Margaret's role as the architect of this betrayal added another layer of bitterness to the already unbearable situation. Ethan's reaction was swift and calculated, driven by a mix of fury and determination. He knew he couldn't tolerate such a betrayal, but instead of succumbing to despair, he channeled his emotions into action. Standing firm, he informed Claire that if she chose to pursue this path, she would not bring her behavior into their home. The house, a gift from his parents, was his domain, and he had every right to enforce boundaries. Despite her protests, Ethan remained resolute, making it clear that her actions would have consequences. That evening, as Claire prepared for her night out, Ethan began executing his plan. By 8 p.m., she descended the stairs dressed to impress, her sleek black dress and flawless makeup a stark contrast to the storm brewing within their marriage. Ethan couldn't resist a biting remark. "Did you forget your suitcases? You won't be coming back if you leave." Claire dismissed him with a wave, insisting it was just one night and she'd return by morning. But Ethan's final warning was blunt. "If you walk out that door, I'm changing the locks." She brushed off his words, claiming love should mean letting her do this. His response was sharp and bitter. "If you loved me, you wouldn't be going." As soon as Claire left with Margaret, Ethan sprang into action. He changed the locks, reprogrammed the garage door opener, and methodically packed all her belongings, clothing, toiletries, everything, into her car. Using tracking apps he had secretly installed months earlier, he monitored her movements, listened to her conversations, and gathered evidence of her flirtations. Meanwhile, he accessed their joint bank accounts, withdrawing half the funds, canceling shared credit cards, and transferring the bulk of their investments into accounts solely under his name. Every step was deliberate, ensuring he was financially and emotionally prepared for a future without her. By the time the weekend ended, Ethan had dismantled their shared life, leaving no room for reconciliation. With the emotional turmoil of his crumbling marriage weighing heavily on him, Ethan sought solace in a project that demanded both physical exertion and meticulous attention to detail: the complete overhaul of his truck. Over the course of several weeks, he poured his energy into transforming the vehicle, replacing the engine, swapping out the transmission, installing new differential seats, and finishing it with a sleek matte black paint job. Each task became a form of therapy, a way to channel his anger and frustration into something tangible and productive. The rhythmic hum of tools and the satisfaction of seeing progress helped him momentarily escape the chaos of his personal life. By the time he finished the truck, Ethan felt a renewed sense of purpose. The vehicle gleamed under the garage lights, a testament to his resilience and determination. With the mechanical work complete, he turned his focus to preparing for the inevitable divorce. Securing legal counsel, he began drafting the paperwork to formally dissolve his marriage. However, he knew the legal battle ahead would be fraught with challenges. Divorces in their state notoriously favored women, and Ethan understood that even the most devoted husbands often found themselves footing the bill for their ex-wives' indulgent lifestyles. The system offered little fairness, and Ethan was determined to level the playing field. To ensure he was fully prepared, Ethan meticulously documented every aspect of their financial and emotional entanglement. He compiled evidence of Claire's betrayal, tracked her movements, and secured recordings of her conversations with Margaret. These details would serve as ammunition in the courtroom, bolstering his case and protecting his assets. As he finalized his preparations, Ethan felt a quiet resolve settle over him. He was ready, not just to end the marriage, but to reclaim his life and rebuild on his own terms. Ethan's plan unfolded with precision on a Friday evening, as he arrived at an upscale steakhouse dressed impeccably in a black button-down shirt, sharp Levi's, and boots crafted from rattlesnake leather. After enjoying a lavish meal of T-bone steak, baked potato, fresh vegetables, and a crisp salad. He confirmed Claire's location through the tracking app. She was at a nearby club with Margaret, who had arrived half an hour earlier. The timing was perfect. Parking a few spots away from Claire's car, Ethan grinned to himself, knowing his presence would rattle her. Inside the club, Ethan spotted Margaret immediately. Timing his approach carefully, he waited until Claire had wandered off to the dance floor with another man before making his move. "Margaret, what a pleasant surprise," he said smoothly, holding a drink in hand as he approached their table. Margaret's unease was palpable. "Rob, what are you doing here?" she asked, her voice tinged with suspicion. "Same as you," Ethan replied with a casual smile. "Since Claire moved out, I figured I'd check this place out and have some fun. Speaking of fun, care to dance?" Though hesitant, Margaret agreed, and they danced through a few lively songs before a slow number began to play. Before Margaret could retreat, Ethan drew her close, his confidence unwavering as the music slowed. Halfway through the song, Claire spotted them. Her expression shifted from surprise to panic, likely thinking Ethan was there to catch her in the act. When the song ended, she stormed back to the table, her glare barely concealing her fury. But Ethan wasn't finished. Margaret leaned into him, her radiant smile and confident demeanor drawing attention from others in the club. As the night progressed, Ethan rested his hand lightly on Margaret's lower back, signaling a growing connection. When the song ended, he escorted her back to their table, where she invited him to join them. On the way, he paused to order fresh drinks for the three of them and put them on his tab. Claire's frustration was palpable as she demanded to know why Ethan was there. He brushed her off, explaining he was just out enjoying himself, just like her. Her attempts to provoke him by flirting with other men fell flat, as Ethan kept his focus on Margaret. Throughout the evening, he made it clear that Margaret and he were a pair. When it was time to leave, Margaret showed no concern for Claire's situation. Ethan mentioned that Claire would need to figure out her own way home, and Margaret shrugged, unconcerned. Back at his place, they wasted no time, and the intensity of the moment drowned out everything else, including the sound of Claire's dramatic arrival later that night. The following morning was tense, with Claire throwing biting remarks Ethan's way while sipping her coffee. Conversation remained minimal, her barely contained rage simmering beneath the surface. Motivated by her reaction, Ethan began reaching out to Claire's single colleagues, inviting them on dates. While some were initially hesitant due to his marital status, he assured them they were separated. Word of his social activities quickly spread through Claire's workplace, stirring conflict between her, Margaret, and the other women. Ethan made it a point to attend events where Claire would be, ensuring she saw him enjoying himself. Using GPS tracking and voice apps on her phone, he kept tabs on her movements. Her coworkers commented on how much fun they had during their outings, adding fuel to the fire. Despite Claire's efforts to bring other men into the picture, tension between her and Margaret continued to grow, and Ethan relished the chaos. He filled his nights with dancing, dining, and socializing, all while listening to Claire's increasingly heated complaints. Things took an unexpected turn when Margaret confronted Claire about their so-called arrangement, feeling cornered. Claire admitted she had expected Ethan to wait for her to finish exploring before settling down and starting a family. Margaret, furious, demanded to know why Claire had dragged her into such a mess. Claire tried to deflect, claiming she had been attracted to Ethan for years and that he had made the first move. For the final chapter of his plan, Ethan contacted his lawyer to finalize the divorce. With their anniversary approaching, he set the stage for a dramatic conclusion. When Claire called to reconcile, he feigned surprise, mentioning vague plans and home improvement projects, dropping hints about a nursery. He fueled her expectations, all while ensuring she'd be completely blindsided by the endgame. The evening of their anniversary was a vibrant affair, meticulously planned and brimming with family and friends. When Claire arrived, she was visibly shocked to find a surprise gathering in her honor. Ethan proudly introduced her as the centerpiece of the celebration. Just as everyone settled in, Rob unexpectedly appeared, causing a brief stir of confusion. Ethan quickly assured Claire that this was all part of a grand evening, surrounded by loved ones. The night unfolded with joyful conversation, drinks, and a lavish dinner. But the surprises weren't over yet. With a flourish, Ethan unveiled a series of major home upgrades, including a sparkling new pool in the backyard. Claire was left completely speechless. Later, as they ventured to the top floor of the house, Claire hinted that she was eager to see all the renovations, still clinging to the notion that one of the bedrooms had been transformed into a nursery. The time had come to unveil the biggest surprise of the evening. Ethan called for everyone's attention, silencing the hum of conversation and turning off the stereo. "Ladies and gentlemen," he began, commanding the room's focus, "I have a few announcements to share on this special occasion." Gesturing to Claire, he invited her to join him. As she stood beside him, he continued, "First, some personal news. As of yesterday, I officially resigned from my job. Only my former boss knew, as I had given notice a month ago. I've decided to launch my own consulting business, which will allow me to spend more time with my family." He paused briefly before pressing on. "Today also marks another milestone, our 5th wedding anniversary. Many of you might not know that Claire and I originally intended to start a family by now. However, circumstances have shifted." With that, he stepped aside, and a red-haired woman emerged from the crowd, her demeanor solemn. "Claire Bader, you've been served," she declared, handing an envelope to Claire. Turning back to the guests, Ethan addressed the stunned room. 2 months ago, Claire informed me of her decision to see other men without asking for my consent. Since then, she has been staying elsewhere, entertaining various partners. While she was unfaithful to her vows, I refrained from pursuing anyone else until after she had broken our trust." Claire's furious scream pierced the silence, but Ethan remained composed. "Claire, as a result of your choices, I'm granting you a divorce. You're free to live your life, just not with me. The renovations you thought were for you, they weren't." I went on to detail the changes I'd made to the house. A luxurious new pool, an upgraded shower, a jacuzzi tub, and a fresh redesign of the master bedroom. I also merged 2 smaller bedrooms into a larger one. With that, Tara, the red-haired woman, and her young daughter, Simone, stepped forward. "This is Tara Oy, my attorney, and her daughter Simone. Over the past 2 months, Tara and I have grown close. Once the divorce is finalized, we intend to begin a life together." Turning back to Claire, he concluded, "Your suitcases are already packed and in the car. You won't be returning here. You chose your path, and now I've chosen mine. I warned you I wouldn't tolerate this betrayal, but you still chose to destroy our marriage." Claire broke down in tears as her family erupted in outrage. While many of their friends quietly exited, Ethan's own family watched in silence as Tara and Simone retreated upstairs, prepared for the fallout. Though nothing romantic had occurred between Tara and Ethan at that point, they had spent time together over dinners and quiet evenings, focusing on building trust. They agreed to wait until the divorce was finalized before taking things further. Claire, who had divorced her first husband for infidelity 5 years earlier, eventually moved into her own apartment after brief, tension-filled stays with friends. In the weeks that followed, Ethan deleted the tracking apps he had used to monitor Claire's activities. He no longer cared. Could he have handled the situation more gracefully? Perhaps. Bringing Tara and Simone into the spotlight so soon had been a rash decision fueled by his anger and pain. But while it revealed his bitterness, it also laid bare the depth of his hurt. Claire's attempts to challenge the divorce were ultimately unsuccessful. Tara stood by Ethan through the legal proceedings, and Claire finally signed the papers after pressure from her own friends. Once the divorce was finalized, Tara and Simone moved in, and their lives began anew. A year later, Ethan and Tara married. Not long after, as they strolled through a street fair, Tara's visible pregnancy drew Claire's attention. Upon seeing them, she fled in tears. Despite the rocky journey, Ethan found peace in this new chapter of his life, rebuilding a foundation of happiness and learning to let go of the resentment that had once consumed him. Through the pain and betrayal, Ethan emerged stronger, his revenge not just an act of retribution, but a reclaiming of his life. The journey had been dark and tumultuous, but it led him to a place of redemption and renewal.